It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Wednesday, February 18th. I'm Mac Watson. The chair of the Wyoming Legislative Committee investigating the check passing controversy told his colleagues on Tuesday the committee wants to pause its work. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that's because the local sheriff's office has undertaken its own investigation.
One day after the House Investigative Committee into Checkgate was formed, on Saturday, the sheriff was like, now I'm investigating this in case there's something that's criminally chargeable. And whenever a law enforcement agency opens an investigation, kind of the public's probe into whatever that thing is freezes. You don't get public records access. You don't get to have these controversies out in public. The agency keeps the investigation pretty tight until a prosecutor decides to do something with it or decides why she's not going to do something with it. It's a pause because once you have a live criminal investigation, all of a sudden, boom, you've got like Fifth Amendment concerns and due process concerns. So what Representative Washit, who has the experience in this area, is saying is, we don't want to violate someone's rights that they're supposed to retain during a criminal investigation.
This investigation is in response to Rebecca Bextel, the state committee woman for the Teton County GOP, who was also registered to attend the legislative session as media handed out checks February 9th after adjournment on the State House of Representatives floor. Governor Mark Gordon on Tuesday banned campaign contributions on state property. So did the Senate in areas it controls in response to the Checkgate controversy. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that the governor is taking action after an incident that happened last week.
The Capitol has spaces used by the three different branches of government, right? There's a Supreme Court chamber even that the justices use from the judicial branch. There's a governor's chamber and other executive branch offices. And there's an entire second and third floor wing each for the Senate and the State House of Representatives. So if the governor is going to say, oh, you can't do campaign contributions in the Capitol, he narrowed that to the part that belongs to the executive branch. But the Senate passed a similar rule also Tuesday saying we're not doing this in places that the Senate controls. The House, as of Tuesday, had not passed a rule, but it has been dealing with this controversy in other ways.
Governor Mark Gordon on Tuesday signed an executive order banning the solicitation, delivery, or acceptance of campaign contributions on property where state business is conducted, including the areas of the state capitol managed by the executive branch. The Wyoming Senate voted Tuesday to restore the governor's $11 billion budget, but the House voted against it. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that things got heated when Representative Mike Yin said budget planners were stabbing agencies they disliked.
Representative Yin actually got out the knife hands and was gesturing during this conversation, basically saying, we're stabbing certain agencies, we're gouging things in broad strokes. And Representative Tony Locke and ultimately the House Speaker Chip Nyman, they were like, whoa, this conversation has gotten really charged. Let's just focus on the substance of the budget. The intervention during the knife hands unfolded because some people were expressing displeasure with the Joint Appropriations Committee, with the budget planners who did this draft. And the conversation kept revolving back to, can we trust the budget committee? Are they listening? Are they being transparent? And when you're having a debate on the floor, you're supposed to focus on the merits of the debate, not the intentions of the bringers. And so I think that by the time we got to the knife hands gestures, everyone was like, this has gotten too charged.
After a few lawmakers expressed themselves, House Speaker Chip Nyman had the last word, saying, ain't nobody stabbing nobody. Meteorologists aren't seeing a trend just yet, but they do see this week of winter weather as a promising sign. Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi reports that at this point, we'll take any amount of snow we can get.
This winter season has been dominated by high-pressure ridges that have set up elsewhere, and that's siphoned off the winter weather we are supposed to be getting off to the East Coast, where they've had record-breaking lows and record-breaking amounts of snowfall. That's changing now as we get into the latter half of February. It started Tuesday with the high winds and snow squalls, and then Wednesday and Thursday we're looking at widespread snow across the entirety of the state, around 2 to 5 inches, which isn't much, and it's not going to make up for what we've missed out on, but as many meteorologists said to me, beggars can't be choosers. You take what you can get. And the prognosis is positive that going forward into March, we're going to see more of these precipitation events. And even if there are high pressure ridges blocking that weather, they're going to be strong enough to push through and get us some much needed moisture.
Now, Wyoming will be blustery, snowy, and cold this week. In short, it's everything we've missed for the most of the winter season up to this point. I'll be back with more news from Cowboy State Daily right after this.
Out here, everything takes longer. The miles in between teach patience. They teach you what's worth driving for. In Wyoming, miles are how we measure love. The distance you'll go to help a neighbor, to pick up your kid from an activity, or to visit someone you care about. That's why Hilltop Bank rides with you through every mile. We're not just close by, we're traveling the same roads. Hilltop Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Cowboy State Daily News continues now. Landowners won't be able to claim all the tags in certain big game hunting areas under a bill a legislative committee forwarded to the Wyoming Senate floor on Tuesday. Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines reports that it's a matter of percentages.
Because of different circumstances, there's been instances in which all the tags have gone to landowners. In other words, hunters didn't even get a chance to put in for the tag drawing. And so to rectify that, there's a bill that says, okay, well, let's place a cap on the number of landowner tags that can be allowed in any particular hunt area. The percentage seems to be what everybody likes the idea. It's a percentage that kind of seems to be up for debate. Some people are saying, okay, cap it at 20. Landowners get a shot at 20% of the tags. The rest go to the public. Oh, well, no, let's do 40. And then it was also suggested today that, hey, let's do it on a case-by-case basis. If this year in this hunt area, it makes sense to give half or only 5% or whatever, let's do it that way.
There have been rare instances of every hunting tag in a limited quota area going to landowners. So says Wyoming Game and Fish Director Angie Bruce. She told that to the Senate Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources Committee. The Wyoming Senate is advancing a first-of-its-kind resolution asking Congress to let the state run the federal mineral leasing program within its borders. Cowboy State Daily's David Madison reports that even supporters acknowledge it's a heavy lift.
Right now, oil and gas producers, miners, they go through the BLM if they want to do extraction on public federal lands. Wyoming would like to change that. They would like to say, hey, this is our state, we know best, and we would like to control the leasing of minerals, and we'd like to make more money off of those minerals as a state of Wyoming. These are resolutions, so they don't carry the weight or strength of law. They're essentially a strong suggestion to the U.S. Congress that we'd like to see this happen. Now, lots of Western states have probably daydreamed about running their own mineral leasing programs. Wyoming is taking an official step.
The Petroleum Association of Wyoming supports the resolution, comparing it to regulatory authority the state already exercises. Unlike the winter of 22-23, when the mule deer were starving and dying by the thousands in Wyoming, this year the herd is looking quite healthy. Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines reports that avid hunter and deer conservationist Zachary Key of LaBarge says the deer are fat and they look awesome, but there is a catch.
This can be one of the toughest times for animals. Like I said, if they're dealing with a lot of snow and a lot of cold this time of year, it's been long enough that they burnt through a lot of their fat reserves, and so they're really trying to get to that final stretch without starving or freezing to death. Right now, the animals are fat and happy, but the double-edged sword is if we don't get some significant moisture in March and April, what can happen is they won't get what they call green up. That thick green spring grass won't come up, and that has a really heavy protein content. And so especially for animals that are pregnant, like pregnant elk, deer, or antelope, if they don't have that rich, protein-rich green grass at the end of spring and the beginning of summer, and they're dropping their calves or their fawns, then it will affect their lactation.
During the terrible winter of 22-23, deer were starving and dying by the thousands, while this winter, they're downright chunky. Rocky, a Labrador boxer mix, escaped his harness during a walk near the mountain town of Montezuma, Colorado on December 28th. Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi reports that he was rescued last week having survived alone for 43 days in sub-zero temps and wolf territory.
Rocky was moving with his owner from New Jersey to California. They stopped off at Montezuma for a skiing trip. Rocky was left in the hands of a pet handler. He got spooked by something, wriggled out of his harness, and ran off into the woods. And at that point, he was in fight or flight survival mode. So he lasted out there for 46 days without any kind of support. And he was in surprisingly good shape considering his ordeal. He lost 26 pounds while he was out there, but he was still active, alert, and he was able to move and call for help, as the rescuers reported. So it's pretty remarkable that not only did he last that long, but they were able to find him. Within 9 hours of their first sighting of Rocky, after over a month, he was receiving medical care.
Rocky was moving from New Jersey to California so his owner, Stephen Ma, could start a new job. On their cross-country journey, Ma stopped in Summit County, Colorado for a day of skiing on December 28th. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting that daily newsletter button at cowboystatedaily.com. And you can watch this newscast every day by clicking subscribe on our YouTube channel or listen to us on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for watching. I'm Mac Watson for Cowboy State Daily.